Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for the City of Germantown, regularly scheduled meeting for Monday, July 13th, 2020. This evening, I'd like to ask for our City Administrator, Patrick Lawton, to lead us in the invocation. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. In light of everything happening around us and in the world today, I thought this prayer most fitting for this evening. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. At this time, I'd like to read a statement into the record. Statement on a notice regarding electronic meetings. All local governing bodies in the state of Tennessee have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Germantown is no exception. In an effort to carry out its governance and operational responsibilities lawfully and effectively, while also considering the protection of public health, safety, and welfare, the Germantown City Administration has taken steps to conduct Board of Mayor and Aldermen and other public meetings electronically. These actions were taken in response to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order number 51 and order extending Executive Order number 16, previously extended by Executive Order number 34, which suspended the requirements of the Tennessee Open Meetings Act to the extent necessary to allow governing bodies subject to the act to meet and conduct essential business by electronic means. The Germantown Board of Mayor and Aldermen has determined that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, notice of such electronic meetings has been and will continue to be published in the same manner as is traditionally used for regular meetings. The public is also and will continue to be able to view the agenda and have live access to the actual meetings by electronic means by logging into the City of Germantown's webpage and by clicking the appropriate link. Video recordings of the meeting will be made available as soon as practical after each meeting on the city's website at www.germantown-tn.gov. These measures are temporary and are due to expire on August 29th, 2020, unless further action is taken by the governor. City Clerk Michelle Betty, can you call the roll to establish a quorum?
Alderman Sanders.
Present.
Alderman Gibson.
Here.
Alderman Massey.
Here.
Alderman Owens.
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
Here.
Thank you, Clerk. All aldermen and vice mayor are present and attending the meeting this evening. That brings us to item 4 on the agenda, setting the agenda. The agenda was presented to the public Wednesday and was made available on the city's website. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
There is a motion by the vice mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by the vice mayor and a second by Alderman Owens. Any discussion? Vice Mayor Yonda.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that we move the number 9 of the regular to the preliminary, which is the interlocal agreement, Shelby County government. That has to do with the CARES Act. I think this is really a no-brainer. We definitely are going to approve that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second. But Mayor, I would also, I think Alderman Sanders was the one who seconded that motion.
Oh, okay. Is that accurate, Alderman Sanders? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, my apologies. We're starting to get the hang of the cyber meetings, but not completely at times. So Clerk Betty, if you make that reflect in the minutes. So it's been properly moved and seconded to move item 9, interlocal agreement, Shelby County government, to the preliminary agenda. If that is approved, that would be item D. Without opposition? That will be item D on the agenda this evening. Clerk Betty, if you can make note of that. Item 9 will be item D on the agenda this evening. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
Yes.
Thank you. The agenda has been established, set, adopted, and modified. We move to item 5 on the agenda this evening, approval of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting held on June 22nd, 2020. Those minutes were presented to the public earlier this week. Are there any modifications or adjustments, corrections at this particular time? Hearing no one come forward, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Move to approve.
There's a motion
Second.
by the Vice Mayor, a second by Alderman Gibson. Please call the roll.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
The minutes have been adopted and approved from the meeting held on June 22nd, 2020. That brings us to item 6 on the agenda, citizens to be heard. Clerk Betty, were there any submissions during the week? Those were called for when the packet was sent to the public Wednesday with the cutoff at noon today on the BMA day. Any citizens to be heard entries?
No, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. That concludes citizens to be heard. That takes us to item 7 on the agenda this evening. Item 7 is Resolution 20R06, a resolution of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Germantown, Tennessee, in support of direct fiscal assistance to local governments in response to the surging coronavirus and its devastating effects on municipal budgets and local economies. Mr. Heisman, would you make that presentation this evening?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. The resolution before you formalizes a request from the city to our United States Senators Blackburn and Alexander regarding a request for federal assistance for any future legislation that is considered to assist Tennessee communities here at the local level. Specifically, as you read through the resolution, it lays out and educates our senators with the amounts that the city anticipates losing in revenue over the course of the next fiscal year, in addition to the expenditures that we have incurred to date. So with that, this resolution has been prepared for BMA consideration this evening to, if approved, will be sent to the senators as they reconvene in Washington towards the end of this month.
Thank you, Mr. Heisman. Is there any member of the board that would wish for me to read this into the record, or would it suffice as it stands? Seeing no one come forward, is there a motion to approve Resolution 20R06, requesting the support of congressional legislators in addressing the immediate direct fiscal assistance needs of all local governments throughout the state of Tennessee as they respond to the coronavirus pandemic? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
There is a motion by Alderman Gibson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second by Vice Mayor Yonda. Alderman Gibson, would you like the floor?
Yes, just simply to say this, Mayor, this is a roadmap for conversations with our legislators there in Washington, and now is the time to be reaching out to them. So I know that, Mayor, at your encouragement, you have asked us to do that. I would just say this is that time. So if there's even a citizen that would like to reach out, this is where they really need to hear from us for what's coming, not just for today, but for what's coming down the road.
Thank you, Alderman Gibson. Would you like the floor, Vice Mayor?
No, Alderman Gibson, my colleague, has said exactly what I was going to mention.
All right, thank you. The floor is open for discussion. Anybody? Hearing no one come forward, I would just state I would like to personally thank Mr. Heisman. You have been our point person here on staff to make sure that you know the CARE Act, the HEROES Act, the various stimulus packages. Also have studied current legislation that has derived out of the state of Louisiana by 2 of their senators. And so it's much appreciated, the work that you have put together. Also, I would just say as an aside, as the Alderman mentioned earlier, we've actually had a number of the residents at the village of Germantown have sent correspondence over the last 3 or 4 months to the Tennessee delegation. So they asked for an assignment and they were eager to do work. So with that said, please call the roll, Clerk Betty.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson.
Yes.
The measure carries. We will send that. We have letters prepared and we will send that to our 2 senators and copy our local U.S. congressman as well. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, the preliminary agenda. I will go through the preliminary agenda for the record. Item 8A, appointment to the Education Commission. That's an appointment to Mr. William Fruit. Item 8B, appointment to the Technology Commission. That's Mr. Richard Davis. Item C, change order number 1, Cordova Lift Station Repair and Improvements, Emergency Refurbishment. And as was mentioned earlier, item D was formerly item 9 on the agenda, interlocal agreement, Shelby County Government. Is there a motion to approve the preliminary agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Alderman Owens and a second by Alderman Gibson. Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey. Alderman Massey.
Let's give a few seconds. They may have been
Mayor.
disconnected. Are you there,
Mayor,
Alderman?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Mayor, I was disconnected just before the preliminary was read. Do you mind going back and telling me if anything occurred? Were there any motions other than to approve the
Just a
preliminary?
motion to approve, a first and a second, and the roll call began.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm a yes.
Okay. I think that concluded the roll call, or were you between aldermen at that, Clerk Betty?
No, Mayor, I was finished.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. The preliminary agenda has been adopted and approved. As mentioned earlier, item 9, interlocal agreement, Shelby County Government, was moved to the preliminary agenda. This takes us to item 10 on the regular agenda, ordinance 2020-3, real and personal tax, first reading. Director Royals, would you like to make that presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this agenda item is to approve the property tax of $1.95 for the FY21 budget on first reading and set August the 10th, 2020 for the second reading and public hearing. The Tennessee Constitution and the city's charter allows the city to tax real and personal property. The property tax is the largest revenue for the city's budget, comprising of 61% of general fund revenues. The setting of the property tax rate is left to the discretion of the city governing body. The tax rate is an ad valorem tax, which means that it's based on the value of the property. And our current tax rate is $1.95 per 100 of assessed value and has been in place since July 1 of 2019. The current property tax projections are based on the current dollar amount and should generate $32.7 million in real and personal property tax for the FY21 budget. Mayor, I'm available for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Director Royals, for that presentation. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 2020-3, establishing the certified tax rate of $1.95 on first reading and to set August 10th, 2020 for the second reading and public hearing? Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion by Alderman Sanders. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second by Vice Mayor Yonda. Alderman Sanders, would you like the floor, sir?
No, thank you, except just to say I'm glad to see our property taxes can remain the same. I wish I could see it go down, but I understand during these times why we can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Yonda, would you like the floor?
I agree with my colleague totally. I'm glad we're able to keep it this level. Hopefully we'll be able to continue it out for a couple more years as we planned.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you for using the term colleague. The floor is open for discussion. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
The motion carries, moves to second reading and public hearing. That takes us to item 11 on the agenda this evening. Ordinance 2020-6, rezoning of a 3-acre parcel zoned RE residential estate to R low density single family residential. Second reading and public hearing. Mr. Ross, you have the floor for a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Let me turn my screen over to the presentation. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now. This is the item number 11, rezoning of a 3-acre parcel from residential estate to R low density single family residential. The area that we're considering is the 3 acres shown on this map. This area was annexed into the city of Germantown in July 2000. In 2017, the school district purchased the 38 acres that is part of this 3 acres and the subject parcel. This area, the 3 acres, has remained undeveloped while the school and the GMSD district offices have been constructed and are operational in this same area. In September of 2018, the board approved on third reading a rezoning for the property to the north from residential estate to R low density single family residential. Taylor Land Investors currently owns this property to the north and intends to develop it as a single family residential project. In February of 2020, the BMA approved a land exchange agreement which included the following. GMSD would deed 3 acres of their property that is currently zoned residential estate to Taylor landowners with the intent that it would be included as part of their single family residential development. And Taylor Land Investors would deed 5 acres of their property to the north along the existing railroad tracks to the city for use as public utility land. In order for these 3 acres to be developed consistently with the rest of the proposed single-family residential development on the property to the north, the applicant has requested that these 3 acres be rezoned to R single-family residential. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this rezoning based on the criteria on the screen that includes change in the neighborhood as resulting in both changes in population, both to the area and surrounding areas, changes in the road patterns or traffic, including traffic volumes and the development of new roadways, the need for the rezoning based upon changes in whatever is classified as the neighborhood, and finally, the effect of the requested change in zoning on adjoining or nearby properties. The Board of Aldermen heard this rezoning on first reading of June 8th, 2020. This is the 3 acres as it's shown on the survey and plot plan. This is a layout utilizing the residential single family zoning, the R zoning, and this is how it would be potentially incorporated into the overall plan development for the subdivision to be proposed by Taylor Land Investors. This project and rezoning does meet the Germantown Forward 2030 key performance area of land use and transportation, strategic objective number 4, that the city experiences positive trends in assessed value of residential areas. I'm happy to answer any questions of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Thank you, Director Ross, for the presentation this evening. This is second reading and requires that a public hearing be held. At this time, I would declare a public hearing and open up to anyone who would like to speak. In electronic meetings, this is done through a separate email dedicated for public hearings that was released to the public Wednesday when the Board of Mayor and Aldermen packet was released to the public. The deadline to submit is noon on the BMA Monday. At this time, Clerk Betty, are there any residents who have come forward who wanted to speak at the public hearing?
No, Mayor, no one came forward.
Thank you very much for your report. At this time, I will conclude the public hearing and move on to the motion. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2020-6 on second reading, the rezoning of a 3-acre parcel from RE residential estate to R low density single family residential? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Owens and a second by Alderman Gibson. Alderman Owens, would you like the floor, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll be real brief. I made my comments, I think, at the first reading, but it's my belief that we have a textbook rationale for this rezoning, as is Cameron mentioned, and as is required by our code. We have to have certain findings, this board does, as well as the Planning Commission, when we look at rezonings. And I think if you look at this piece of property in particular, there's been changes in the area. There's been changes in road patterns and traffic. There's been changes in the neighborhood. And it's my belief that the proposed rezoning will not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood. And so I believe this does meet all the justifications for rezoning for our code requirements. And I'll be moving in favor of this.
Thank you, Alderman Owens. Alderman Gibson, would you like the floor at this time?
No, Mayor, my colleague expressed my sentiments. Thank you.
The floor is open for discussion. Hearing no one come forward, please call the roll.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
No.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
Yes.
The motion carries and moves to third and final reading. That brings us to item 12 on the agenda this evening, Shelby County Election Commission payment. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Following the November 2018 election, former Alderman John Barziza filed a suit against the Shelby County Election Commission, claiming that the votes cast, or at least some of the votes, were improperly counted. In March of this year, the administrator of elections for Shelby County sent to the city of Germantown, to our accounts payable division, a bill, if you will, in the amount of $19,351.26, which they say represents the legal fees that they incurred in defending the election commission against this lawsuit. It is a position of the city administration that taxpayer dollars should not be used for this purpose, for a lawsuit filed by a private citizen. However, in conversations with Mac McCarroll, he has informed me that the state statute provides that this issue between the election commission and the city is just that. It's the city and the election commission and asking the city to pay for the bill. I wrote the motion for the board in the affirmative because that's the way we write most of our motions, to pay this, but the administration is withholding, any recommendation at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton, for the presentation this evening. Is there a motion to approve to authorize payment in the amount of $19,351.26 to the Shelby County Commission for attorney fees resulting from the John Barzizza lawsuit? Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve?
Mayor, if I could add one thing, I apologize for this. The motion should say to the Shelby County Election Commission.
My apology. You are correct.
Okay.
Again, to authorize payment in the amount of $19,351.26 to the Shelby County Election Commission for attorney fees resulting from the John Barzizza lawsuit. Is there a motion to approve? Or Vice Mayor Yonda?
Can I, of course, I don't know if we have to wait until we make the motion. I would like to offer an amendment to postpone this consideration.
First we have to have it on the floor to be discussed. So you would bring it forward in the form of a motion? Yes. Okay. Is there a second?
Nobody wants to second this. I guess it fails.
Is there a second?
I will second this just for the purpose of discussion, allowing Alderman Yonda to have his discussion.
All right. It's been properly motioned and seconded. Vice Mayor Yonda, you have the floor. If you wanted to bring forward amendment, you could do so at this time.
I especially would like to offer an amendment to postpone the consideration of this item until, let's say, the next meeting on August the 24th. I would like to request that the bill be submitted to the responsible private citizen. The policy creation of this expense for the people of Germantown. The mayor, I do have some questions.
All right, hold on. All right, so let me make an effort. Let me make an effort to make sure the clerk and I have this correctly. You would like to postpone this agenda item to the meeting scheduled for 8/24/2020 and submit the bill to John Barzizza. Is that accurate?
That's correct. He's who caused the creation of this expense.
Okay, well, that's you can speak here in a moment.
Okay.
That's been brought forward in the form of an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
The amendment was brought forward by by Vice Mayor, and it was seconded by Alderman Gibson. Vice Mayor, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, Mayor, I have a question for the city attorney that will address you.
Sure.
Does the state, now he said that we're supposed to be paying this, does the state law preclude the people of Germantown from getting this money from our private citizen?
I'm aware of nothing that prevents them.
Thank you.
So are we within our rights? I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead. You have the floor still.
Are we within our rights to seek payment for the people?
I think what would have to happen first is the statute says as between the municipality and the election commission that the municipality is responsible for paying those attorney's fees. However, I don't feel that there's anything that would prevent the city from stating a claim against the private citizen for indemnity because we're incurring expense that but for his filing a lawsuit, we would not have incurred.
Right.
But that would happen after, if and when we ever had to pay it.
Thank you, Attorney. Vice Mayor, you still have the floor.
So our steps are that we need to submit him a bill. Is that what from the people? I mean, from the people of Germantown. Is that correct, Mr. McCarroll?
Attorney.
Yeah.
Attorney McCarroll, I think the question was, can a bill be submitted?
I don't think there's anything preventing us from submitting it to him. And if he goes ahead and pays it, then the problem goes away.
Okay.
The future issues we discussed would come to pass, if we ever have to pay the bill, we would have to decide what legal action we wanted to take to get that money back from the private citizen.
So the people of Germantown could seek legal relief and ask for a judgment, which of course might end up costing more than the 19,000. But anyway, or file a lien. I guess we could probably file a lien for that. So, okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Alderman Gibson, you seconded that. Would you like the floor at this time, Alderman?
I did, Mayor, thank you. My concerns are, I just have a real problem with this. The people of Germantown shouldn't have to pay a private citizen's legal bills. And I would actually say that no matter what the outcome of that election would be. It does not feel as if knowing by us submitting a bill to the citizen, we have no way of knowing what that outcome is going to be, whether they will pay it or they will not pay it. If it is our responsibility, because the two entities, the Election Commission and the municipality, are responsible for at least resolving that, it's between those two parties. Were it not for this private citizen filing the lawsuit, we would not have to be paying this. So I'm reluctantly supportive of this. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Alderman Gibson. The floor is open for discussion. Anyone?
Sure, Mayor.
Alderman Massey, you have the floor, sir.
So, Mayor, if you could ask Attorney McCarroll to address the legal justification that the Shelby County Election Commission has cited for demanding this money from the city.
Thank you, Alderman. Attorney McCarroll, can you field that question, please?
Yes, it's Tennessee Code Annotated Section 2-12-101C1. And it's pretty self-explanatory when you read it.
Okay, well,
Alderman Massey, you have the floor.
Can you
for sure, Mayor. So the attorney can make it easy on all of us and just summarize what the statute says.
I'll be
Sure,
glad to.
thank you. As a matter of fact, I think you can just go ahead and read it because it's not very lengthy. Attorney McCarroll, would you like to do that?
Yes, C1 says if the legal proceeding names the County Election Commission as defendants and the lawsuit involves a municipal election, the municipality concerned shall furnish counsel to represent the commissioners.
Thank you,
Okay.
Attorney. Alderman Gibson, or I'm sorry, Alderman Massey, you still have the floor.
Okay, and so where does that state that we're liable for the $19,351?
Yeah, it just says that we have to provide the counsel for them, and that's what that bill is.
Did they ask us to provide counsel for them?
Yes.
Did we provide counsel for the Shelby County Election Commission?
Yes, John Ryder and Pablo, I can't remember his last name.
Well,
If I could
those
clarify.
Well, hold on one second. Let's clarify that just a little bit. City Administrator, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, Mac and Board and Mayor, we did not actually provide the counsel. The Election Commission sought their own counsel in the defense of this lawsuit. And to the best of my knowledge, they did not consult the city of Germantown.
They didn't consult me.
Well, in my opinion, if that's the case, Attorney McCarroll, then the Shelby County Election Commission has foregone their right to trigger the provisions that you cited. You know, it sounds to me like the language clearly states that, you know, they can ask the city of Germantown to provide counsel. They decided to use their own counsel, and now they're billing us for the hours that were allegedly incurred by their own counsel. That doesn't sound like it's permissive under the statute that you cited. So I'm not convinced that either the city or anyone else in the city of Germantown is liable for their legal expenses, and that's something that we should certainly look into. I think I'm not opposed to postponing this while you determine that. I am opposed to, at this juncture, voting to demand this money from a private citizens when it may actually turn out the city of Germantown isn't liable for this $19,000 at all.
Thank you, Alderman. The floor is open for further discussion.
I have
Alderman Sanders.
Thank you. I did check with the city administrator last week when our agenda came out, asking just this question: what authority that they had and what was the opinion of the city's attorney. So finding this out now catches me off guard, because I didn't get a reply except that it was believed that if we voted on this and didn't vote to pay it, that it would send a strong message to the election commission. So now to find out as we're reading this that there is some statute that might apply here, I'm a little caught off guard. So I don't mind postponing that to give us a little more time to look at this. I also agree with what my colleague said, that if the election commission didn't give the city an opportunity to supply the attorneys, people that we already have retained or have contracts with, and we are forced to pay for their choice of an attorney, I believe is inappropriate. So I do believe we have some grounds to defend against paying this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Further discussion? Hearing no other. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Owens. Go ahead. You have the floor, sir.
Attorney McCarroll, would you, based on what you've just said and the discussion that has occurred with my colleagues, are you saying your interpretation is that we, as a municipality, have to pay the bill, or are you saying that? Well, what are you? Is that correct?
As between the election commission and the city, I think ultimately the city under that statute would have to pay for their legal bill. But what I'm also saying is I don't think anything would prevent the city from seeking indemnity from the person who filed the lawsuit if the lawsuit was, say, frivolous.
Alderman Owens?
No further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I did have a question.
Go ahead. Alderman Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. If you could check with Attorney McCarroll as far as if we were to defer to our next meeting, for us to be able to get some clarification on the points that my colleague made as far as whether or not, I don't believe that the Election Commission actually has to ask us to supply that counsel. But again, that's really something that I think that can be delved into by our next meeting. Is that something that the attorney believes that we can get some resolution on by the next meeting? And then if so, if we then at that time could make a decision as far as what would need to happen with that $19,000 bill.
Thank you, Alderman. Attorney McCarroll?
Mayor, I think postponing it's fine. I don't think that number is going to end up being the final number anyway. I've been going through the bills, and there's an entire bill that was billed to us erroneously. So that amount of money is coming off. There are a few more entries that are coming off. And I'm going to be working with the council Harris Shelton to get these in a final form. So I don't think postponement is a problem at all.
Thank you. Alderman Gibson, did you have any, you still have the floor, any other comments or discussion?
Well, the only comment would be to my colleague who made the original amendment request to change the language to see if Alderman or Vice Mayor would be willing to change that just to moving it for deferment for the August, you said 24th meeting?
Correct.
Do you have any objection to that, that request by Vice Mayor Yonda.
No, I have no objection at all. I mean, based on the information we've just gotten from our city attorney, of course, I don't think the people of the Germantown are responsible for this whatsoever. And we've actually got two good reasons right now. One, it wasn't, we weren't named in this lawsuit and weren't even party to this lawsuit as far as I was concerned. And also the fact that we weren't asked what kind of counsel we would like to have in this situation. So now we have two good reasons. And then in the end, we can, ask the responsible private citizen to pay for it, John Brazil. So I'm okay with this way. I mean, do we want to make it all the way to, I was hoping the 24th, just so we could have so they could have conversation with Mr. Brazil.
Sure.
Do we want to wait? Do we want to do it a little bit earlier? Because will Mr. McCarroll have the ability to, within a 2-week period, or will we want to wait until the 10th of August?
Well, let's go ahead and give the, with COVID and so many other things, let's give legal ample amount of time.
I'm okay
What
with
I'm hearing, yes, what I'm hearing is, so of course, the vice mayor made the amendment and the motion. The Alderman Gibson made the second. She offered, in essence, what would be just the slang of a friendly request. Since she made the second, I don't need to ask her if she's willing to withdraw that second. And so currently the motion would be just to postpone this agenda item to August 24th, 2020. Is that correct? The people who made the motions, can I get an affirmative? Okay.
That's good.
Without objection, is that fine? We'll still call the roll, but it seems like this seems to be a good solution.
Just a little clarification. Is postponement only to let our attorney do some research and report back to us? Is that correct?
The postponement would mean that, yes, he will do due diligence and then this item will come back to you. Yes.
Great.
Well, I do have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
The invoice from Shelby County Election Commission was dated March 9th, 2020. So I'd like to know why we're receiving this in July. And you can answer that question first.
Sure. I'll speak for administration. We've been pretty inundated with a worldwide pandemic and sagging economy, social unrest, and other items. It hasn't been something that's been front and center on our radar. You have another question?
Yes. It's Mr. McCarroll said that he knew that there was an error in this. And so it seems that stating publicly that John Barzizza owes $19,351 because of this invoice is unfair to him. The fact seems that we don't know what the Shelby County Election Commission will bill the city of Germantown.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alderman Massey, I agree with you. Right now, the amendment that's out there is to postpone to the 24th. The bill was submitted with this amount on it. He'll do the due diligence, but right now that's the billing amount. Whether it's correct, incorrect, accurate, inaccurate, that'll be determined, but that's the bill submitted. So that goes on Shelby County Election Commission's shoulders, not ours.
Well,
hold on a second. With that said, we do have a motion and a second on this particular item. Would you like to have the floor?
I would like to.
This is your second and last time. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I'm not sure why we would want to punt all the way until August. It seems like they should be able to get us the numbers more quickly than that. My concern is that this is going to be turned into political football and used to attack John Barzizza and the people that supported him. I also have some concerns about the conflicts that might exist within the administration due to the contentious nature of the last election between yourself and Mr. Barzizza. If our attorney McCarroll is working under your administration's direction, perhaps he has a conflict and we should get, a third party to take a look at this and give us an independent legal opinion so that we'll know exactly how we should respond to the Shelby County Election Commission. Take you and your staff out of the middle of this. And so I really think we should probably get an opinion from someone outside your administration about whether or not the city even owes this money.
Thank you for your thoughts and comments. You have the floor. Any other discussion?
I'd like to amend that we postpone this until the next meeting. I think that'll give us enough, that should give any attorneys enough time to resolve the billing issues, to come up with the exact figure and examine the statute that Attorney McCarroll cited, and then we can move forward with a decision on this sooner rather than later. I mean, the invoice was due back on April 10th, allegedly. So let's move it up to the next meeting. That's what I'd like to see us do.
Well, we currently have an amendment on the floor for the primary motion that has been discussed and debated. You have asked for it to be moved to what meeting is that? What date?
The 27th.
So my motion
7/27. All right. Is there a second?
I will second it just so I can.
Great. There's a second. The motion has been made to postpone till 7/27/20. Please call the roll.
Can I ask a question on that, Mayor?
On the 7/27 motion,
Yes,
because we'll
yes.
we'll return back to the prior motion or the prior amendment. So
It was just on the 7/27 motion, correct?
Sure. What's that? What's your
I
question?
just wanted to ask if the city attorney thought that would give enough time to either have him review that and give us advice and counsel at that meeting, or if the city's intending to find someone else, do we have enough time for that to occur?
Attorney McCarroll, is that enough time for you to do your due diligence, or would you prefer the latter date, the one of August 24th?
I would prefer the latter.
Further discussion? Please call the roll on the 7/27 amendment.
Alderman Sanders,
No.
Alderman Gibson,
No.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
No.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
No.
The amendment does move to the meeting of 7/27/20 fails. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Mayor, can you restate the motion, please?
To postpone the agenda item to August 24th, 2020.
Alderman Massey,
I'm going to abstain.
Alderman Owens,
I'm sorry. I thought we had moved it to the 10th. It is the 24th then. Okay. Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
That concludes the vote, Clerk Betty, and the motion, the amendment carries, and that agenda item is settled. That takes us to the end of our agenda this evening. And at this time, we are adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you.